Court today, hearing oral arguments in a case about whether states can count mail-in ballots after Election Day. Our chief legal correspondent, Shannon Bream, has that story for us. Hello, Shannon.
Hello, Sandra. So this stems from a Mississippi law that says you can get ballots counted up to 5 business days after Election Day if those ballots are postmarked by Election Day. The RNC is challenging this. They said Congress set an election day and states do not have leeway to make all of these different changes to it. Well, Justice Jackson was skeptical. She says, listen, states have done all kinds of things. Why hasn't Congress cracked down before now if they said everything has to be completed by Election Day? If that's what they really meant. Here's a bit of Justice Jackson.
We now have pretty common practice among many states to allow for absentee voting in this way, early voting, all these other things, but in particular, post-election day ballot receipt deadlines. And Congress has not indicated, at least thus far, that it intended ever to preempt this, that it intended not to have the states make this determination.
So 29 states have some kind of grace period after Election Day. So the implications of this decision in this case today could be widespread heading into the midterms. Now,
so liberals and Democrats aren't going to like this one too much. Supreme Court seems like they're poised to change some things around before these upcoming midterms. And that is change election week, election month, election whatever to election day, which is the way that I think it should be. I don't think we should have early voting. I don't think we should have, ballots coming in a day later. I don't care if they're postmarked before the election day or not. Okay. I think it's election day. Simple. Election day. It's a holiday. We should make it a holiday. And it's a day where we all go to the ballot box and we vote as a country, as an entire country, all across this country. We all vote on the exact same day at the same time, obviously. And there's no early voting and there's no voting after. It's just on the day. And whatever is counted or whatever is in by closing of that day. Well, I guess if you're in line, of course, if you're in line by closing of the polling. But hopefully, with something like that implemented, we'll know exactly who won real fast. It's not like I don't know. We got to count in the mail-in ballots that are coming in overnight. Oh, by golly, it looks like Biden just took the lead. Like, no. Nope. If the ballot isn't in by 9 o'clock at night or whenever the poll closes, it doesn't count. Doesn't count and it shouldn't count. But y'all let me know your opinion in the comments. Now I want to play a clip from the RNC lawyer, Paul Clement, in part of his argument. Check it out.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court, all agree that elections for federal office have to end on the day of the election specified by Congress. And all agree that you can't have an election unless you receive ballots, and there must be some deadline for ballot receipt. Nonetheless, Mississippi insists that ballots can trickle in days or even weeks after Election Day. That position is wrong as a matter of text, precedent, history, and common sense. Mississippi all but concedes that the original public meaning of election.
Also, hold on, I just want to interject just a little bit here. I think we do need to set a specific day for Election Day because, Election Day has now turned into Election Week. Soon it'll be election month. Then who knows, it'll be election months. Then maybe election year. Then who knows, they might extend it to, 4 years. Hey, as soon as the president wins, you can start collecting votes for the 2028 election, right? Or as soon as 2028 is over, you can start collecting votes for the next election. It's just like, come on, man. This stuff is, no. Let's just nip this in the bud here. Before we get off the rails. It's election day, not election week, not election days, or election month. No, election day. Simple. You show up, you vote, done. Boom. If you can't show up and vote, well then, I guess your vote doesn't get counted. Unless you're a military serviceman overseas. Of course, we'll make some exemptions for those individuals, but you still better get your ballot in on time, and we'll make sure you obviously we'll make sure that you get your stuff well in advance. Okay, well in advance with plenty of time to get back over here to the United States. But yeah, that's the way that I see it. Let's continue.
Included both offering to vote and the receipt of that vote or ballot by election officials. And of course, the key distinction between voting and an election is that an election involves the combined action of voters and election officials, as this court underscored in its decision against Foster against Love. And of course, Mississippi insists that at the time these statutes were passed, ballot receipt and the casting of the ballot were so inextricably intertwined, no one would have thought of one without the other. That seems to me to be a damning admission, but it also ignores the advent of field and proxy voting in the Civil War and the enormous efforts that states went to ensure that all of the ballots, whether by proxy or by field vote, were received by Election Day. In the state's view, all of those Herculean efforts were for naught or were entirely gratuitous. Now, the state's position actually works even worse as a matter of common sense. If somebody in Gulfport the day after the election asks, is the election over? The common sense answer is, no, it's not. The ballots are still coming in. And if somebody asks who won, the truthful answer is, we don't know yet. The ballots are still coming in, and they may trickle in for weeks or months. And in fact, they may trickle in for weeks or months with or without a postmark in differing ways in differing states. That reality gives the lie to the idea that we have a uniform national election day.
So there you heard a piece of the argument there from the attorney for the Republicans, Paul Clement. Now, I want to play another clip of Justice Alito and something that he said during this whole hearing. Check it out.
We have lots of phrases that involve two words, the second of which is day. Labor Day, Memorial Day, George Washington's birthday, Independence Day, birthday, and Election Day. And they're all particular days. So if we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase Election Day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place, or almost everything. And then we have 3 points in time. 1844, 1872, 1914. And we can ask, what would people have thought on those days is meant by this phrase, Election Day? Which of those should we choose? Which of those dates should we choose?
Well, I think you could choose any of the three. I mean, honestly, I think the single best one, if you're just going to choose one, is 1872. And the reason I say that is because 1914 is the latest in time, but that's the one that Congress gave the least thought to.
So, yeah, just based on the name of the day, Election Day, if we're just following along with everything else, like birthday, your birthday doesn't last a week. I mean, I know some people like to try to celebrate their birthday for a week or a few days, but technically those days aren't really your birthday. You only get one birthday. So, yeah, Election Day. Election Day. I mean, it's really that simple. It's really that simple. I don't understand why this is like turned into like rocket science here. This is really quite simple. It's literally called Election Day. It's really quite simple.
Just finished hearing arguments in a major case that raises questions about the legality of mail-in voting. The conservative justices appeared skeptical about allowing states to count ballots that are mailed on time but arrive after Election Day.
The court's ruling could upend the voting process in more than a dozen states just months before this November's midterm elections. NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach joins us now. So, Gary, this case stems from an election law in Mississippi. So walk us through it and what we've heard so far from the justices.
Yeah, the oral arguments were supposed to be about whether postmarked ballots by Election Day could be accepted after Election Day, but it really turned into a debate on a variety of different election-related topics, from who is actually delivering that ballot to the state, topics about like ballot harvesting, to conversations about potentially people being able to recall their votes. For example, if you were to send something in via FedEx, could you tell FedEx, oh no, I actually want that back? And then there was conversations about the length of time the state allows a voter to be able to get their ballot in and have it count. So, for example, some states do a week, some states do 21 days. Conservative Justice Samuel Alito predictably was pretty upset about all of this. He said, we used to have election day. Now it's election month or election months, guys.
Gary, if the Supreme Court does rule in favor of the RNC and Mississippi's GOP, what does that essentially mean more broadly for the rest of the country when it comes to these midterms?
So Mississippi was the state that was arguing this and defending their own law, but there's 13 other states that have similar laws. So this would be a very significant thing for almost half the country here in terms of whether or not ballots would be allowed to be counted after Election Day. You have a map there that shows states, both red and blue states that we're looking at there. And it also specifically relates to some of these military ballots, right? Folks that are serving overseas in our military, especially right now, may not be able to get their ballots in on time, even though they are postmarked by Election Day. We will have to see exactly how the justices write this opinion. We should be getting it by the end of June.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on.
And I hope they rule the correct way. And the correct way is Election Day, not election month, not election week or weeks. This is it's turned into a bunch of nonsense, right? It's turned into a bunch of nonsense. Like Alito said, it used to be Election Day. Now it's turned into election month. You got early voting, you got the day of voting, and then you got ballots coming in after. Like, no. Election Day. And if you can't figure out how to vote on Election Day, then maybe you shouldn't be voting. I'm so serious. Maybe you shouldn't be voting. It's the same argument that I have for voter ID. When these Democrats are out here, well, it's gonna disenfranchise people who can't figure out how to get the birth certificate in. Well, if you can't figure that out, then maybe you shouldn't be voting. I'm so serious. You can't figure out how to get a birth certificate, really? You can't. You don't know how to get a copy of that? You can't figure out how to get a new ID, really? Well, then maybe you shouldn't be voting. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Why should I be sorry that you don't know how to figure that one out? I mean, by God, we got phones, and you know what else is on our phones now? AI. Hey, AI, how do I do X, Y, and Z in such and such town or city? Boom! It tells you exactly what to do. What do you know? If you can't figure out how to do that, then shit, you really shouldn't be voting. Excuse my language. You really shouldn't. You really shouldn't. If you can't get out and vote on Election Day and participate in your American duty, well, then maybe you shouldn't be voting either. I understand people got jobs, people got to work, and whatever else. That's why I said it should be a holiday. Okay, personally, that's what I think. And obviously, polls are open before people go to work, and they're open typically after people get off of work. So there might be a small minority of the population who literally are working the entire time the polls are open. That is a tiny portion. That is less than half of 1%. No, less than 1/4 of 1% of the population. Probably even less than that. Less than 1/10 of 1% of the population that genuinely works those kinds of hours. And even those folks, it's like one-offs, right? It's not a weekly basis or daily basis, I should say. So that's not an excuse either. So yeah, I don't think there is any genuine argument to have election month continue on. Military men and women, they're exempt. Okay, I mean, you still got to get your ballot in before polls close, but we'll make sure they get what they need well in advance to get that ship back here to America, right? But outside of that, yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm even willing to go as far as giving an exemption to military men and women. Like, yeah, your ballot can come in after, but everybody else, nah. Matter of fact, yeah, I'm gonna run with that because I think that is the official stance, at least from what I heard from Harmeet Dillon. The official stance is that military men and women are exempt, right? For obvious reasons, okay? Obviously. But then everybody else, we all play by the same rules. We vote on the same day. Nothing comes after. Simple and plain. How do y'all feel about it? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.